Good afternoon, everyone. We continue our study on the book of Numbers, and today we are in Numbers chapter 12. Numbers chapter 12 obviously follows from chapter 11, and something interesting happens. It's something troubling, and also somewhat difficult to comprehend in the English language. And the narrative seems to show that there seems to be a problem between the siblings. When I say siblings, it would be Miriam, Aaron, and Moses. Those of us who are not aware, Miriam, Aaron, and Moses, stated right here, Miriam, Aaron, and Moses, they are all siblings. The eldest being Miriam, and then Aaron, and the youngest being Moses. And that would be a story that you could read in Exodus chapter 2. Now, in chapter 12 right now, we see a very interesting and troubling discourse. And so we would see this. And then this would be and then, right? And then. And that means after chapter 11, this thing took place. Miriam and Aaron, they actually spoke out. The word speak here is davar. And as you know, whenever the Bible uses the word davar, it is always concerning some issue, certain matters. Whether God spoke it and he had a matter against the Israelites. And in this case, Miriam and Aaron had an issue with Moses. And the reason, right? The reason right here was because of this Ethiopian, and this word would be Cushite. Cushite really is something that denotes someone who is dark, right? A woman who is dark. In this case, I would think that it is not a nationality or a type of people, because we have seen that in Exodus chapter 2. So we would say this, Exodus chapter 2, he had married a woman by the name of Zipporah, a Midianite. And this is the woman whom he had married. And Miriam and Aaron had a problem in this case. And so we know that he had married Zipporah, a Midianite, the father being Jethro. And we see this in also Exodus chapter 18. Now, why chapter 18 is because before the Exodus, Moses sent the wife and the children back to Jethro. And then in chapter 18, after they have come out of Egypt, they were in the vicinity of Midian, and Jethro came with the wife and the children to meet him. At the end of chapter 18 of Exodus, Jethro leaves, and we don't read about the wife following him. So Zipporah is there with the children. And there is this issue. This is an issue, right? Because of the Ethiopian or Cushite woman whom he had married for Moses had married an Ethiopian woman. So I would think this way, and I'm just giving you my opinion after going through all the various comments by different people. This would be one who is dark and also beautiful. However, what is important in this case is not because of the dark skin of Zipporah, but because Moses did not marry an Israelite. That is the I would say would be the issue here, right? The issue. And if we're not aware, let me just show you a slide, and then we'll come back to this page. If you see this particular slide, which I've shared with y'all before, it's built on First Chronicles chapter 2, from verses 3 to 12. Now, much of the first part of Chronicles has to do with a lot of genealogy. And from the genealogy, you can actually build the whole picture. But what I wanted to show you is this. In Exodus chapter 6, verse 23, Aaron married Elisheva. Elisheva is a sister of Nahshon, and Nahshon goes all the way down as the grandfather of Boaz. And so you can see that this is from the tribe of Judah. And you know, the tribe of Judah eventually will also become very powerful, become a very focused point. And Aaron had married, and Aaron being a Levite, always remember that, he married a Judahite, a Jewish woman by the name of Elisheva. And this is an important pedigree, because this family under Ram and Hezron and Perez and Judah, you find that this would be the line where you get to King David. And thereby, Aaron had married well into the family of Judah. And so that is what's happening. Miriam, Aaron spoke against Moses, and it's about the dark-skinned woman whom he had married. And we know from Exodus chapter 2, her name is Zipporah. Now, there are some Jewish commentaries that say that the issue, right, this issue here was because of a divorce. Now, we can't see that divorce here. And the word married here is taken. And in context, taken as a wife, as his wife. Like, that would be a better way of looking at it. And so in this case, you find that they are complaining against Moses. And the issue was this. Moses had married a woman not of pedigree. Now, what do you mean a woman not of pedigree? She was not an Israelite. But of course, when we understand what happened to Moses, he spent 40 years in the palace of the Pharaoh, and then he ran away from the palace of Pharaoh, and he arrived in the land of Midian and met up with this woman, the daughter of Ruel, or Jethro, the priest, a Midianite priest, and they were married and they had children together. And so obviously Moses did not marry an Israelite because of the way things have panned out in his life. Now, when he went back to Egypt, he didn't bring Zipporah and the children. And so now that Zipporah is with them in this journey, Miriam and Aaron is saying, well, she is really not of pedigree, and obviously you Moses are not really that great a guy, isn't it? Now you've married somebody whom it's not us, and it's not even an important family. And so the complaint was this: has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also? Now, this is an important concept that we need to understand, that both us, and this would be Miriam and Aaron, And you see that God has spoken. Now, this word spoken is also davar, which means that both Miriam and Aaron can also speak like a prophet, that God actually does speak through them. And that is also because in the previous chapter, last week in chapter 11, where Moses had selected 70 representatives of the elders of the tribes of Israel, and they were given a symbolic confirmation that they were able to speak like a prophet. Now, in chapter 12, this issue came out, and it's against Moses, saying that, well, both Miriam and Aaron can also speak like prophets. So, what's the big deal about Moses? And especially that he did not marry well. He married Zipporah. And Zipporah is not of Israel, and it's not an important family. Would that not put Moses down? And hereby comes the response of God, and the Lord heard it. And this would be Jehovah. And Jehovah heard, and this is the same word, Shema. Okay? Shema. And this is commonly, when it's used for men, it is commonly translated as obey. But basically, it is to hear and to understand and to take action. That is how this word, Shema, is. And so God heard what was said against Moses, and God understood that. And now God is about to take action upon what he had heard. Now the man Moses was very humble, more than all men who were on the face of the earth. Now notice it's put in brackets. There is no brackets in Hebrew, but in the English they put it in brackets, mainly because it is treated as a comment. It is a comment about Moses. What about Moses? It says Moses is very anav. He is very, how you say, he's very humble, very lowly. He doesn't flaunt his authority. He is meek. These are all the words. He never considers himself above every other person. And he is more humble than all the men. Now, all the men is Adam. And with this, we know all humanity. All humanity upon the face of the soil. This is Adamah. And with this, we know that this would be a very general statement that maybe we could say that Moses is the most humble man on this planet, right? Not that they are discussing about the planet, but it gives us the idea that in that little commentary, that Moses is highly touted in the eyes of God, that he is definitely the most humble person on the ground, right? On the soil. Okay. And in verse 4, suddenly, now the word suddenly, I think you can see that it is surprisingly. They never expected God to speak, but God spoke. And it is important for us to realize that the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, means all three together. All three together. And they were maybe in Moses' tent. We don't know, right? But they were told to come out And this word really means to go out, right? So out of the tent, you three, to the tabernacle of meeting. So God summoned them. You can see this. When God said, the word say is to speak, right? To speak. So God said something, I would think, audible to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. And says, go out, you three, and come to the Ohel Moab. And Ohel Moab is a place where God will always meet up with Moses inside that tent. And so the three of them came out. Then the Lord came down. Notice the Lord came down in the pillar of cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle. Now, these are all very imagery words. You can actually see the descent. That the pillar of cloud is descending. If this was the Ohel, and what we see is we will find the cloud coming down and standing there before the three of them. And that would be in the vicinity of the Ohel, right? The tabernacle of meeting. So God brought them there. And God spoke to Aaron and Miriam. Now the word is called. The idea in verse 5, call is kara, and this would really mean, and then after they arrived there, the pillar of cloud came down, and then, right, and then called out loud. Summon, maybe you could say that, summon Aaron and Miriam, and they both stepped forward. And they both went forward. They stepped out. Right? And then God said this. God was defending Moses. He says, hear now my words. And this would be davar. Remember, whenever we see the word davar, it's about issues, right? It's about matters. So there was something that God wants to tell them. So if there is a Navi among you, then it says, the Lord will make myself known to him in a vision. I speak to him in a dream. And so we need to break this down. This is an A and this is a B. And so make myself known in a vision, speak to him in a dream. These are all synonyms. Make myself known, basically to let the prophet be aware of the presence of God. Speak to him means that there will be things that God wants him to know. And so thereby he knows this is God speaking. And the mechanism here is one of vision. Vision is something seen through a glass. I think this is a good enough explanation. That you're not seeing directly. You're seeing through, well, I guess, something that is not direct. Maybe in a reflection, right? Maybe you could say that in a vision would be seeing something that is not absolutely direct, It's through a reflection, through a looking glass of some sort. The word dream here would be halom. That will also be in a way an indirect, right? This would be in the mind. In the mind. And so these are both A and B because they are speaking of how God speaks to the prophet, not in a direct form. So all of these means that is an indirect communication. And God says, that's what I do. Which also means that Aaron and Miriam, God speaks to them through such an indirect means. And then God says this, not so with my servant Moses. Not so with my servant. And Moses is considered a servant in my house, right? He is faithful in all my house. So understand this. My servant, my house, shows this to be a very intimate relationship that God has with Moses. God considers Moses one who is, I can say as one who is faithful, one who is reliable, one who is trustworthy. And so this is God's conclusion of Moses. This is very important because God sees Moses as very different from Aaron and Miriam. And now there's Miriam and Aaron having a problem with Moses because they are complaining that why should God be the one speaking to Moses? No? He is not even married with a good pedigree, doesn't have a great family in the line of the nation of Israel. But God defended Moses. Now that is a very important position that we need to understand. That God treats Moses as servant in his house. Now, again, I want to bring our attention to the fact that the servant in the house is one who is treated like a son. Understand this. Like a son. If you go back and you recall Genesis chapter 15 with the thought of Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, when one has been trusted to such an extent, Abraham treated Eliezer as the only heir if he doesn't have a son. Eliezer will be that son who will inherit everything from Abraham. And that is how close a master is to the servant. It's very different from our modern day idea of servant or slave. In the eyes of the Hebrew culture, there is significance placed on a servant because he is one who is trusted to attend to personal matters, which is why God says, I want to speak to you, and then you tell the children of Israel. That's how God speaks to Moses, as one face to face. But in here, God has said that to all the prophets, when they speak like a prophet, they are being spoken through via an indirect means. Verse 8, I speak with him face to face. Now, this word face to face is English. In the Hebrew, I guess it's easier to say mouth to mouth. Mouth to mouth, right? Not face to face as in the English term. So this is an English term that is used, but in the Hebrew, it's literally mouth to mouth. And in this sense, God says, I'm speaking to him plainly. Plainly means something that he can, let's say, something that he can actually see. That is what plainly means. What is plain that he can see? Not through a mirror, or not through a looking glass, or not through a dream. And also not in, well, it says here, dark saying. Well, I don't know why they use this word. This word is parable or riddle, right? Not in dark sayings, something that is in a puzzle. It's not dark sayings, I guess, right? That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know why they use the word dark sayings, but God is saying, I am speaking to Moses directly, very plainly. This is what I'm saying, and this is what you will write, and this is what you tell the children of Israel, because God is giving to Moses his Torah. And the rest do not get this. The rest will get little bits and pieces of information that God wants them to say to certain people. And so they may get it in dreams, in a vision, not directly, and they would be getting things in a riddle, in a parable. Now it says here, Moses sees the form of the Lord. What does this mean? The form of the Lord means the image, right? The image or the likeness. And so it appears to me, at least, that Moses actually sees something, right? He sees something that represents God. Not like the pillar of cloud, but he does see something as if he is talking to God. In a very literal sense. Now, I don't know how to describe this, but essentially, as long as we know that the way that Moses interacted with God is completely different from all other prophets, would be clear enough. And then God says, why then were you not afraid? The word not afraid is, how should you say, this is fearful of Moses to speak against my servant Moses and bring a charge against him, right? This is the davar, the issue of his marriage. Why were you not afraid? Now, this word fear is usually used in fear God. And God is saying, why are you not afraid of Moses? I think this would give us a concept, I guess, that Moses is very special to God. And Moses is speaking on behalf of God because God tells him, say this to the children of Israel, and Moses will speak that. And so God is saying, why are you not afraid of Moses? Because he is speaking my words. I'm with him. He is as if he is God to you all, or as one who has that authority of God. And so they are supposed to fear him and do not cross him and do not upset him by questioning his authority. As a result, the anger of the Lord was aroused against them, and he departed. Now, this is an important aspect. The anger means the nose of God was hot, right? Was hot. And this is what it means, aroused. Aroused is hot, and Anger is nose, right? And then God, well, it says departed. God walked. Now, where did he go? He came in the form of a cloud. And it is said that God walked and walked away. And so it is the cloud that departs from above the tabernacle. Now, the word depart is to turn aside. So you can actually visually see the cloud itself moving away from the top of the tabernacle. And then suddenly Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And then Aaron turned toward Miriam, and there she was, a leper. Now, this is Zara, and I guess the word here, Zara, it is a skin disease. Now, we use the word leprosy, but it's a skin disease that turns white, like as leprosy is, right? It will turn white and it becomes like snow, and snow is white. And when Aaron turned towards Miriam, and it says, there she was. Well, there she was means, behold. And as Aaron looked, she really had Zara. Right? She really have Zara. And this is an important aspect. And it seems that it was Miriam who was the instigator. And how would Aaron know, right? Well, Aaron knows because Aaron would know from Leviticus chapters 13 to 15. And so you need to go back and read that. The law concerning Zara. And Aaron said to Moses, "Oh my Lord." Oh my Lord, and the word Lord here is Adoni, right? Adoni. And the reason why it's Adoni and not Adonai is, well, we were told that is with reference to a human person. And that's Moses, and that's my Lord. That's my Lord. When it says about God, it would be Adonai. Now, just the sound change. But it's interesting that there is a different sound for God and a different sound for man. It says, please do not lay this sin on us, which we have done foolishly and in which we have sinned. This is something we need to pay attention to. You would notice that have done foolishly is an A, and have sinned is a B. Done foolishly and sin is both the same thing. This sin that was missed, it's not something that they should do, but they have done that. And so there is a judgment upon them. What have they done? They were foolish. They became fools. They were slack. They were slack and they became foolish. The word here is Ya'al. They are seen as worthless. By raising that issue, and God came to the defense of Moses, everything that was said is now clearly seen as of absolutely no use. And that is, they have missed the point. They have missed the point about the relationship between God and Moses. Then it says here, please do not let her be one as dead, whose flesh is half consumed when he comes out of his mother's womb. Now, this idea here is, when it says half consumed literally means half flesh, and the other half is not. And it is called as one who is dead because of the whiteness right? The whiteness. When one is white, there is no blood. And so one who is Zara or have Zara, or what we call leprosy, is treated as one who is dead and needs to be put outside the camp. So Leviticus chapter 13 to 15 gives us the law regarding the law of lepers, right? Now, Moses cried out to the Lord saying, please heal her, oh God, I pray. And this is an intercession by Moses. The word cry, I think you need to understand, it means to cry out for help. This is not merely cry as in English language describing what he said, but he is actually literally desperate because this is nevertheless his sister. And so he says, he calls out to God, says, please heal her. The word heal her is to restore. That's how the Hebrew looks at words like this. Heal her means to restore her from leprosy back to normal. Right? I think that is what would be easier said. And I pray is about saying or uttering. And thereby we use the word it has a broad set of meanings, and this is to intercede. He's saying something to God in the form of an intercession. It's an intercession. And God responded, and very clearly we can see that God hears Moses. And the Lord said to Moses, clearly we can see that God speaks to Moses mouth to mouth. He can actually hear the voice of God. It says, if. The word if is an interrogative expression. If her father had but spit in her face. Now, this is an idiom, right? Spit in her face would mean that, how would you say, in the spitting out, this would be angry, right? Angry at her. If her father had done this, would she not be ashamed 7 days? Would she not be humiliated? For 7 days. There is a period of shame. And so God says, let her be outside. So let her be shut out. Now, the word shut out, I guess you can say close out. Well, maybe you could say quarantine. Right? Quarantine, in isolation. Out of the camp 7 days, and afterwards she may be received again. The word receive means gather here, gather together, right? Gather together as part of the congregation again. Now, what does that mean? It means is that no one can come back if she still had Zara. So it implies that if she is received again after for 7 days, then she would be healed on that 7th day. And so Miriam was put out of the camp 7 days. The people did not journey until Miriam was brought in again, which means that the cloud did not move. And you can see that this is a very visual lesson for all Israel. For all Israel. Because they were party to not able to move until Miriam was brought back again. Now the word brought back is gathered, to be gathered. And this would imply restoration and pronounced clean. Right? And the priest would have to do that. It is not just because there's 7 days, but in 7 days, the statement here implies that she is cleansed of leprosy. And it's only afterward, after this event, the people moved from Hazeroth and then camped in the wilderness of Paran across from the promised land. And why would they move? Because the cloud moved. And so we can see from the text, there are a number of what we call inference. And it is written in that way so that we understand that they never move unless God moved. So if the cloud doesn't move, they don't move. And the cloud didn't move for 7 days. How would Miriam be brought back? It means that after 7 days, she was clean again and needs to be pronounced clean. And then restore her with all the offering of Leviticus chapter 13 and 14. And that thereby would be a very visual lesson for all Israel, that do not despise Moses. Do not treat Moses as somebody who is common, because God has set Moses apart for a very, very important work. And in this piece of work, not just merely leading them out of Egypt, but also as the mouthpiece for God to speak to the children of Israel concerning his Torah, and thereby writing it and keeping it in the ark with the tablets of testimony, writing down all the laws that God has spoken to Moses. And so Moses is a very, very important. In fact, in all of the Old Testament, the Moses is beyond a prophet, beyond, because he had the ability, and God gave him the privilege to speak to God, well, in the English terminology, face to face, but mouth to mouth, to be able to have a communication and a conversation with God in a very literal sense, to be able to see some form of God by his eyes. And so not like any other prophets, through an indirect means. And so thereby in chapter 12 of the book of Numbers, they moved after this event, and now they are in the wilderness of Paran. And the wilderness of Paran is a little bit away from the promised land, in the south of the promised land. And that's where the descendants of Ishmael will be there, because in the book of Genesis, Ishmael and his descendants actually lived in the wilderness of Paran, which we believe to be the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula. And in so doing, the Ishmaelites and the Midianites had mingled, had co-married, and they are known as Midianite and Ishmaelites. Seems to be interchangeable. And so one of the things that we can have a takeaway from this chapter is, do not despise Moses or somebody who has not married with pedigree. Moses being a Levite, and he married a dark-skinned woman from Midian. Does that make any difference? It doesn't make any difference to God, because God is looking at Moses. And the marriage itself, Zipporah was very loyal because she had performed the circumcision for the children and to Moses. so that they don't need to die in the early chapters of the book of Exodus. So we see that the wife is very supportive and knows what to do with Moses, and that is more than enough in the eyes of God. It has nothing to do with pedigree. And that was why Miriam was taught a very important lesson. And thereby we come to the end of chapter 12.